This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Microsoft Word Essentials. My name is Keith Began. I'm the System Technology Trainer for the Mercer County Library System. And in just about a minute, we'll be starting our Word Essentials class. We're going to be continuing what we talked about in Intro to Word last week. But we're going to kick it up a notch and explore more of the tabs and tools in the Microsoft Office ribbon, or the Microsoft Word ribbon, excuse me. All right. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you that this class taking this class does qualify you for the Word Essentials Assessment, all right, or more specifically, the North Star Digital Literacy Assessment, which you can take, and if you pass with a score of 85% or higher, you will earn a certificate in Microsoft Word. And remember that that certificate does align with the college and career readiness standards, so it is a real world certificate that you can apply to really any job out there. All right, so if you want more details on that, just see me after class and we'll talk about how we can get you signed up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me just,
This conference will now be recorded.
all right, so let's go ahead and jump in to Microsoft Word Essentials. So tonight we're going to be editors. All right, we're going to have an existing document. Instead of typing one up from scratch, we're going to have one that's already typed up. We're going to be looking at a draft of a professional document and improving it in a number of ways. We're going to reorganize it, we're going to format it and correct errors. And we're going to approach these edits through three main phases. We're going to first look at the layout of the document, things like our margins, orientation, and line and paragraph spacing. In phase two, we're going to look at the styles, the things the formatting options we choose to emphasize or clarify points made in the document, things like our font size, font type, bullets, and numbering. And then in phase three, we're going to review the document for any potential errors, some of which will be obvious, some of which will be not so obvious. All right, so tonight's class is going to introduce you to more of the tabs and tools of the Microsoft Word. It's going to introduce the keyboard shortcut. All right, I think I touched on this last week, but there are several operations we can do in Word and other PC-based programs that they can be done with just the keyboard. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that a little bit later. Very easy to do. Oops, and I didn't mean to do that. All right, and in the end, this class will give you the tools to create a professional looking document. All right, so we're going to go ahead and jump in. Don't worry about that little thing that said Dazzle Dance Studio. So right now I am looking at my Windows 11 desktop. So we're all going to go ahead and launch Microsoft Word. So let's all go down to our Windows 11 taskbar. Click on the icon for Word. Remember, it's the W. Click on it once to launch the program. All right, and stay on this screen for just a moment. Now remember that we are using Word 2019 in this class, but as long as you have access to Word 2007 or later, you'll find that whatever you learn in this particular version can be easily applied to those other versions. Now, when we first open Word, just as a reminder that we come to the Start screen. On the right side of that Start screen is a template gallery. These are those built-in specific types of documents, all right, and they allow us to create those kinds of documents much faster because they're basically already formatted. We just have to plug in our own information. Okay, but in a moment, we're going to be opening up our own existing document. I just wanted to remind you that those templates do exist in case you ever want to experiment with them. Okay, now on the left side of the start screen is our jump list, where we see recent at the top, and these are Word documents that we've recently saved and can reopen at any time to begin working on them again or jump back into them, hence the name jump list. Now you're all going to see in your jump list a document called Word Essentials, Smart Cookie Bakery Annual Report. Do we all see that on the left side? Okay, so I want you to go ahead and click on it to launch that document. One single click, perfect. Yep. Okay, so we opened up this existing document called Smart Cookie Bakery Annual Report 2021 Rough Draft. So, as I said before, we're going to be kind of proofreaders or editors. We're going to be looking at this and making several changes to make it look more presentable, more professional, and better emphasize the points made. Now, I'm going to zoom in on mine. You don't have to zoom in on yours. This is just so you can see mine a little bit better. Okay, so let's just review some of the fundamentals real quick, and then we'll get started looking at the actual content of this document. So remember that when you're looking at the page in Microsoft Word, we could see the actual page on top of that light gray background. Okay, right now we see the left, right, and top edges of the page, and when I eventually scroll down, you will see the bottom edge. Now on that page, first of all, we see my mouse pointer turns into the I-beam, which is what we use to select text, which we'll get into in a few minutes. And we also see on the page itself that blinking line before the word smart here, before our heading, and that blinking line is called the insertion point. Okay, and the insertion point basically tells us that we're ready to type, but more importantly, it tells us where the text is going to fall when we start typing. So oftentimes we need to move the insertion point to a different location in order to make the right change in the right place. And remember, we can move the insertion point by using either the arrows on our keyboard, up, down, left, right, or by using the mouse and just clicking in a specific location. All right, but for now, I'm going to go back to the beginning and click before the heading. All right. Now to the right side of that document, there is a vertical scroll bar, which allows you to scroll up and down the document as needed. And as I scroll down, you will see right now this document is on about 1.5 pages. So it is taking up part of a second page, which will change eventually. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and scroll back up to the top now. Now underneath that work area, okay, where we're typing up the actual document, we have that light gray bar down here if you follow my mouse pointer. Okay, a light gray bar above your Windows taskbar, and that's called the status bar. On the left side of that status bar, there's a page count and a word count. And to the right side of that status bar, there are a few quick ways to change the view of your document, which we don't really have to worry about. All right, but to the very right, you will see a zoom level. All right, so this is the fastest and easiest way to zoom in on your document or zoom out from your document at any time. So if you want to see it a bit closer, you can zoom in, either click, or if you want to see it a bit further away, zoom out. You can either click and drag on the toggle in the middle here, or press the plus, click on the plus sign or the minus sign to zoom in and out. All right, now as we go above the document, we come to the menu that holds all the tools available to us in Microsoft Word, and we call this menu the ribbon. Okay, this is called the ribbon. Very important term to remember. And the ribbon organizes all the tools through a system of tabs. So remember that beginning with the Home tab here, which I'm pointing at right now, and you can see the Home tab is currently activated because of the outline around it. Okay, they're just like tabs if you had manila file folders. Now the remaining tabs, I'll click on them real quick, are Insert, Design, Layout, References, Mailings, Review, View, and Help. So as we click on a tab, we get a different set of tools for each tab. All right, I'm going to go back and click on the Home tab. And by the way, I've been calling them tools, which is fine, but technically we could also call them commands. All right, usually we call them commands. So in each tab, the commands in each tab are further broken down by more specific categories. And those category names are listed at the bottom of the tab, and those are called groups. So for example, in the Home tab, I have a clipboard group, a font group, paragraph, styles, and editing. So throughout class, I will always tell you the tab to go to, then the group to go to, and then the specific command we need. All right, but remember, if you're not sure that you're clicking on the right command, you can always point at it, leave your mouse pointer there for 1 second, and a little label will pop up telling you what it is. Now to the left of your Home tab, there is your File menu, all right, which we have to go to get to the Backstage operations. I'll show you real quick. All right, I won't go through all of them, but just the important ones. new to create a new document, open to open an existing document, save and save as to save our current document, and print to print our current document. Now I'm going to go back up to the top left corner, click on the arrow to go back to the work area. All right, last but not least, in the very top left corner of the screen, top left corner of the ribbon, is your quick access toolbar. All right, which allows you to add additional access points to your favorite commands so you can get to them faster. All right, there are a couple ways that you can add commands to that toolbar. The fastest way is to simply find the command in your ribbon, right click on it. Again, that's a right click, not a left click. And in that contextual menu you get, you can then click on Add to Quick Access Toolbar. And if you've opened that menu, you could just click anywhere outside of it to close it up. All right, so let's just talk about the sort of the layout of this document real quick, okay? And then we'll get started with our edits. So this is a sample annual report or a rough draft for our business called Smart Cookie Bakery, okay? Now, we have a title here, or what we'll call a heading. Underneath of that, we see highlights, which we'll call a subheading. So heading, subheading, and then the remainder of the document is made up of 6 individual paragraphs. Each one of those paragraphs begins with in 2021. Okay, so those are the first 3, and then there are 3 more as I scroll down. So 6 paragraphs make up the body of this document. So essentially what we're doing here is this is sort of, think of this as, well, just as it says, the highlights. Okay, we have a big full annual report somewhere else, but this is kind of just the condensed version. All right, the specific highlights that we want to mention, okay, or more, maybe more to the point, the specific accomplishments that our bakery has seen in the year 2021. So we're just highlighting those 6 accomplishments in this document. All right, and again, we're separating each highlight or each accomplishment into its own paragraph. So that's how this document is arranged. All right, so now what we're going to do is go through the document and make some changes. To, again, make it more presentable, more formal, and emphasize and clarify points made a bit better. So the very first thing I'd like to do is, remember, the first thing we're looking at is the overall layout. So one of the most obvious offenses here, at least to me, is as I scroll down, I'm noticing this page seems to be arranged horizontally, okay? In other words, the long edges of the page are at the top and bottom, and the short edges are on the left and right. I'm going to scroll back up, okay? So this is what we call landscape orientation. Now, typically you won't have to worry about this when you first start a Word document because it's not going to be set up this way, because this is not usually how we type up traditional documents. All right, we don't usually do them in landscape, but I did this on purpose, all right, just so you can get the practice of changing the orientation if you ever have to. So this is a very simple one. We don't need to select anything because we're not talking about the text. We're just talking about what's around the text, all right? So to change the layout, to change the orientation, we need to go to a special tab in our ribbon, and that's, of course, the Layout tab. So go up to your ribbon and click on the Layout tab. okay? And in the layout tab, the very first group is called page setup. And you'll see a drop down called orientation. Click on orientation. And you only get two options here, portrait and landscape. Just click on portrait to change it to portrait. Okay, very simple. So now this is how a document is typically arranged in Word. Portrait orientation, which means the long edges are on the left and right, and the shorter edges on the top and bottom. Now, when you did that, if it put you into a two-page spread, meaning that when you look at the screen, you see both pages at the same time, you can change that. I'll show you how. Go to your View tab in the ribbon. Go to your View tab. All right. And in the Zoom group here, right under the tab itself, click on one page. All right. And if it zooms it out like it did with mine, you could always just zoom back in using the zoom level I talked about earlier. See where it says one page to the right. There you go. Click on that. And then if you have to zoom in, you can zoom in. All right, Vera, that was in the View tab. Yeah, sometimes when we change the orientation, it changes our view from a one-page spread to a two-page spread. So just in case you need to fix that, that's easily done by going to your View tab. The View tab is where we go to change the way we're viewing the document on the screen. It has no bearing on how it prints out, just how we see it on the screen. Okay, so that one was simple. We simply changed the orientation from landscape to portrait. By going to our Layout tab and to the Page Setup group. Now we're going to do something similar. Cancel. At the bottom right, see the zoom level? Click on the plus sign. Keep clicking. There you go. You got it. Okay, so now let's go back to our Layout tab. So go up to your ribbon, click on the Layout tab. All right. Now, I talked about this in Intro to Word. I'll talk about it again real quick. Around all sides of the page, top, bottom, left, and right, we have those empty spaces. Okay, and those are called margins. They're there on purpose. They're meant to keep the text kind of nice and tidy, prevent the text from spilling over the edges of the page. Now, we want to just quickly verify whether these margins are normal margins. All right. So for a professional document, you would likely be using normal margin dimensions, which are nowadays considered to be 1 inch on all sides, top, bottom, left, and right. So 1 inch. So we want to make sure that nobody changed these to something different. And if they did, we want to change them back to normal 1 inch. So to do that, we go to our Layout tab, which we're already there. Same group, Page Setup, and click on the very first command called Margins. The very first command called Margins on the left. Margins. All right, so now we get a number of built-in or preset options, and you'll see the dimensions are listed. Now the one that's selected is called narrow, and it looks like all the dimensions are 1/2 inch. That's not what we need. The one we do need is the one above it called normal, and notice, like I said, top, bottom, left, right, all set to 1 inch. So just go ahead and click on normal to reset your margins to 1 inch. So click on normal, and there you go. Very simple. Now we have 1 inch margins on all sides. And I should mention that in that margins dropdown, at the very bottom, if you ever want to, if you ever need to change anything to something more specific, there is a custom margins option. So you can set them to whatever you want them to be, and they don't all have to be the same. All right, that comes in handy for things like newsletters, things that are more graphically rich where we need to cram things onto the page. But in a normal document like this, 1 inch is typically your go-to. All right, we're still looking at the layout here. So now let's get into something a little more complicated. So once again, I'm looking at the page here, and remember, we have those 6 paragraphs. Each one begins within 2021. So here's paragraph 1, for example. Now, one thing I'm not really a big fan of here is the kind of wide spacing between each line and each paragraph, okay? Because it kind of makes it look like one giant paragraph rather than 6 distinct individual paragraphs. Okay, so what I like to do is I want to change the line spacing here. So the very first thing we need to do is select the lines, the spacing of which we want to change. So that means we're not worried about the title and we're not worried about the subtitle or heading and subheading. We want to start with the first sentence here. So I want you to select the first sentence, and remember, don't let go of the mouse button. You have to keep it held down throughout the whole thing. So select the first line, keep your cursor out to the right, and then just go down. And as your mouse cursor reaches the bottom of the screen, it will start to scroll by itself. Don't let go of the mouse button until you go on to page 2 and select the entire thing, ending with Far West Region. Good. If you want, you could go back to the right side of the screen and scroll back up to the beginning. You don't have to, but that's what I'm going to do here just so you can see where I am. Okay, so now we've selected these lines, so let's adjust the spacing. Now, technically speaking, we can adjust line and paragraph spacing in the same tab, the layout tab, because it is a layout feature. You'll see there's a paragraph group right here. Okay, however, I personally feel like the line and paragraph spacing command from the home tab is a bit easier to use. So in your ribbon, I want you to go back and click on the home tab. So go to your home tab. All right, and in the home tab is the paragraph group. We went over a bunch of these commands last week. The one that we didn't really get to was line and paragraph spacing. So I'm pointing at it right now. So find the command called line and paragraph spacing. And when you do, you can go ahead and click on it. Again, we're in the home tab, paragraph group, line and paragraph spacing right here. And then go ahead and click on it to open the drop down. Currently, Santa just landed on the roof. Okay. All right, so we get a bunch of options. So this one's simple, at least for now, and then I'm going to elaborate a little more. The first set of numbers that we see here, 1.0, 1.15, etc., that's your line spacing. And we can see a check mark next to 2.0, which means double spaced. If you've ever heard the term double spaced, that's what this document is currently in, double spaced. But I want to change it to single spaced. So that means we need to click on the one that says 1.0. So go ahead and click on 1.0 to change the lines you've selected to single spaced. 1.0, the first option. Good. And by the way, if I scroll down, another good thing about doing this is that it got everything onto one page. Okay, so by single spacing it, it's now on one page instead of 2. Now, let me highlight those again. Not something we need to necessarily worry about here, but I just want to quickly go over something that can be a little bit confusing when you use Word. You'll notice there is a slightly larger space between each paragraph. So I'm talking about here, 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 etc. Okay, a slightly larger space between the paragraphs than the space between the lines. That's because Word treats these things differently. So the lines that are part of one paragraph Don't worry about this term too much, but they're called contiguous lines. Contiguous lines. And that is what's controlled by your spacing here. But there's a separate control for your paragraph spacing. So again, two different things here, line spacing and paragraph spacing. If you ever need to adjust your paragraph spacing, you go to the same command line and paragraph spacing, but you can use the toggles at the bottom, but a better option would probably be to go to your line spacing options, and in this dialog box, you'll see spacing before and after. And that's where you can customize your paragraph spacing. So if you don't want any paragraph spacing, they can be both set to 0. But in this case, you can see we have 6 points for after, but single spaced here. That's why the document has a slightly larger space between paragraphs than it does between lines. Make sense? All right, so two different things, line spacing and paragraph spacing. And if you've opened that dialog box, you just go to the bottom right-hand corner of it and click on Cancel to close it. All right, now we're going to do one more thing with the layout, and then we're going to update our document and resave it. Now this one's going to be a nice little review of something we did in Intro to Word. This is going to be a simple cut and paste. So I'm looking at my document. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. So in paragraph 3, we introduced this new person we hired. His name is John Doe. Okay, so that's one of the accomplishments, that we hired and filled the new position. And again, the person we hired, his name is John Doe. In paragraph 4, we mentioned something else different, okay, irrelevant to that. And then in paragraph 5, we mentioned another accomplishment, but this one relates to John Doe again. So I might think, to me, it might make more sense if the two paragraphs dealing with John Doe come before and after each other instead of having one in between. Okay, so what I'd like to do, okay, follow along here. What I'd like to do is take paragraph 4, the one that starts with in 2021, we updated the bakery. I'd like to take that paragraph and move it above paragraph 3. So I want to reorder the sequence of the paragraphs. All right, so we're going to do this by using a cut and paste. So step 1, remember it's a 4-step process. Step 1, we select the portion that we want to cut. So go to the paragraph starting with in 2021, we updated the bakery, and select just that paragraph. And remember a little trick I told you last time, if you triple click on it, 1, 2, 3, anywhere in that paragraph, you'll select the whole paragraph, no more, no less. Remember, triple click, 1, 2, 3. Anywhere in the paragraph is fine. Good. Now step 2 is to go ahead and cut it. And remember, we're going to do this from our ribbon, just to be consistent. So up in the ribbon, we're still in the Home tab. On the left side is the Clipboard group. And in the Clipboard group, you're going to click on Cut. Good. Now step 3 is to tell the program where to put it. And we do that by moving the insertion point. So all we have to do here is click at the beginning of paragraph 3. The one that starts within 2021, we created and filled a new position. So click at the beginning of it, right before the word in. So your blinking insertion point should be right before the word in. And then all that's left to do is go to step 4 and paste. So go back up to your clipboard group in the ribbon. And remember, don't click on the paste drop down. Click on the actual icon itself. The paste icon, the picture. And then you'll see that you move the paragraph to a new location. All right, that one was pretty simple. So now we're much happier with the layout. In a moment, we're going to get into the styles. All right, but before we get there, let's go ahead and do a save. Now, technically, this document's already created, which means it's saved. So we could do a quick save, but what I'd like to do is save this as a new document because remember, we are proofreading and editing. So we might want to save the original rough draft in its original version and save our edits as a different file. That way we have both on hand in case we want to compare and contrast. So in order to save this as a new file with a new name, we need to do a save as again, as if we're saving it for the first time. So I want you to all go to your file menu. On the left side in the blue pane, click on not save, but save as. Save as. Okay, now usually in class we go to the browse icon here, but I want to just point your attention to this kind of quick access area on the right. We don't usually talk about this. Now mine's going to look different from yours. Don't worry about that. Okay, these are basically recent folders that you've used to save your work. All right, or think of them as folders that you, or frequently used folders that you use a lot. Okay, Microsoft Office is going to just kind of keep track of those and allow you to go into them quickly. So it's just a bit faster than going to the browse icon. All right, again, just think of it as a quick access area for your favorite folders. So on that right side, you will see your documents folder. Again, don't look at my screen, just look at yours and look for the documents folder. When you find it, go ahead and click it. Good. So now it takes us to our Windows Documents folder, and we go down to File Name, but of course we're going to change it. So I want you to erase what's in that file name box. And let's just call it Annual Report Revised. Annual Report Revised. That's ANNUAL Report Revised. All right, and just a quick reminder, we don't have to change anything here, but I just want to remind you that the next box underneath of this is Save As Type. All right, typically when we save things in Word, we are saving them as, just as it says here, Word documents. All right, remember we call that a file extension. .doc or .docx, that's called a file extension, and that's typically how we're saving Word documents in that file format. Again, .doc or .docx. You can save them as different types of files, including, for example, a PDF, but almost always we're saving them as normal Word documents. So all we have to do at this point is go to the bottom right-hand corner and click Save. Okay, so now let's talk about the styles. The kind of formatting options we use to emphasize and clarify points made in the document. We're going to change them a little bit. So another obvious offense, remember at the beginning it was the orientation, all right, but this one, perhaps even more obvious, is the fact that whoever did this used a blue font, which doesn't really make much sense for a professional document like this. So in 1 second, we're going to change that. For now, give me one moment. I'm turning off my microphone and I'll be right there. All right, so let's change the font color from blue to black, or what Word calls automatic. Now, before we do that, of course, we need to select all of the text of the document, all of the text, heading, subheading, and the body, everything. All right, now let's just suppose this document was in a blue font like this, but it was 50 pages long. It might take a little bit of time to select everything like this and just scroll, 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 and there's a chance we might miss something. So a better option is to use a tool called Select All. So I'll show you two things at once here. So let's go up to our ribbon to the Home tab. We should all still be in the Home tab. All the way to the right of the Home tab, follow my mouse, is the Editing group. I talked about this a little bit last week. The Editing group has three commands: Find, Replace, and Select. These commands basically allow you to look through your entire document for something specific, like a specific word, let's say, find every instance of it, and perhaps even change it, okay? Or at least just select things without having to necessarily change them. All right, so again, just remember, commands in your editing group allow you to look through your whole document for something specific. Let's think of it that way, okay? So I want you to click on the drop-down command that says select, so click on select, and then just click on right underneath select all. And you'll notice that it selects everything in your document, okay? And again, if this was 50 pages, 100 pages, it would select all of the text in the whole thing at once, okay? Now, I want you to, real quick, click anywhere on the white part of the page to get rid of the highlight, just for a second. So just click anywhere on the screen to get rid of the highlight, just for a second. And I want to show you another way to do a select all, and this is going to introduce something called the keyboard shortcut. So when we use a PC, all right, a PC computer, regardless of the brand, there are several basic formatting operations we can do by just using our keyboard. All right, and I want to show you these because as you get more kind of fluent in them, they're going to make your life a little bit easier because they tend to work a bit faster than having to grab your mouse and go to the screen. So several keyboard shortcuts are done by holding down the control key and then pressing a different key. So if you look at your PC keyboard, in the bottom left corner is a key that says CTRL. That's control. There's another one to the right of the space bar. You don't have to use both, just one or the other. And it's very simple. The way keyboard shortcut works is you hold down the control key with one hand and with your other hand press the other key you need. So for select all, it's control A, the letter A. So hold down control with one hand, with your other hand press the letter A. Oops, let me do mine, there we go. And you get a select all. All right, and I'm showing you this because a lot of these operations aren't specific to Microsoft Word. You could use them on pretty much any program that's running on a PC. So for example, if you're reading an internet article and you do a keyboard shortcut with select all, it will select, in most cases, the whole article, okay? And there are several other keyboard shortcuts. I encourage you to check them out. For example, we just hit cut and paste. You could do that with a keyboard shortcut as well. Control X to cut, Control V to paste. Control S will save, Control P will print. So again, I encourage you to check more keyboard shortcuts out, but I just wanted to show you one quickly so you know how to do them. All right, so now that we've done a select all again, all of our font is selected. So now we can change the color. So let's go up to our ribbon. We're still in the Home tab. Let's go to the font group. So we're in the font group, and you'll see the icon that has the A with the little red underline. Point at it, it will say font color. Now click on the drop down arrow right next to it to get a palette of different color options. And the very first one at the very top there says automatic. Click on automatic to make it black. At the very top of that drop down, above where it says theme colors, automatic. Perfect. Okay, now I want to change my, for my heading or the title, I want to, just to emphasize it more, something we sometimes do with titles is maybe make them a little bit bigger than the rest of the text. So this time we're just talking about the heading here. So I would want to select just the heading. And remember, technically, because we press the Enter key after it, we can do a triple click, 1, 2, 3, to select it because it is its own paragraph. So now that we've selected the heading, let's go up to the font group again, to our font size, and you'll see that right now it says 12. Okay. All right. So we're going to change it from 12 to 16. So in your font group where it says 12, click on the drop down and select 16. All right, now the next thing I'd like to fix, still in the font group, is the font itself, the font type. If we look at this document, it's currently using a font called Comic Sans. If you look in the font group, you'll see it says right there Comic Sans. Comic Sans is a font we typically use for more lighthearted correspondence. Things like funny emails or birthday party invitations, not so much for a professional formal document like this. All right, so we want to pick a font that's maybe a bit more conservative. So once again, because we're changing all of the font for all of the text, we can once again do a select all. So you could do it either way. Either go to your ribbon in the home tab, go to the right to the editing group and click on select all, or using the keyboard shortcut, remember it was Control A. So remember, you don't have to highlight. We don't have to highlight. We're doing a select all, so you don't have to highlight. So hold down Control, press A. Good. And we're going to go back up to the font group, to the font option where it says Comic Sans. Click on the drop down. And let's make it Times New Roman. So remember, you could scroll down on the right here to the T's. So pretty far down. And you're looking for Times New Roman. I'm going to keep my arrow there for a minute so you can find it. And when you see Times New Roman, just click on it. All right, good. Okay, now you can go ahead and just click anywhere on the screen to get rid of the highlight for now. Okay, so now what I'd like us to do, one more thing in terms of the styles. Okay, one more thing I want to add to this to better emphasize the points made in the document. So let me just talk about the document again for 1 minute. So remember, I said that we have the 6 individual paragraphs which make up the body of the document. Each paragraph describes a specific highlight or accomplishment, whatever you want to call it. Now, I'm kind of thinking we did the single space, which kind of helps us see these as more as individual paragraphs a bit better. But another thing we could possibly do is make it more of a list. Okay, because if you think about it, that's basically what we're doing here is we're just listing the highlights. It's kind of like when somebody says to you, give me the highlights or give me the bullet points, right? Because remember, this is just a condensed or abridged version of the full annual report, which is a separate file. So what I'd like to do now is add bullets to each paragraph. So once again, we don't want to do select all this time because we don't want to add bullets to the heading or subheading, only to the body of the document. So this time we need to select, like we did earlier in class, just the paragraph. So start with your first sentence, keep your mouse cursor out to the right like this, and then just work your way down line by line. Don't let go of the mouse button. It will scroll by itself until you reach the end, and then you can let go of the mouse button. Good. Now we're going to scroll up. You can go ahead and scroll up if you want. And very simple. Remember, when we add bullets, Word is going to put them at the beginning of each paragraph. It's going to look for each time you press the Enter key and put the bullet at the beginning of that first paragraph, at the beginning of each paragraph, excuse me. So all we have to do is go up to our paragraph group in the Home tab, follow my mouse cursor, paragraph group, and remember the icon with the 3 dots, that's bullets. Click right on it, and now you have a bulleted list. Right on the 3 dots. And remember, if you click on the drop down, you'll get other types of bullets in case you want a different type of bullet. It's really up to you. I'm just going to use the regular solid bullets. Now, a few things about adding bullets. A couple of these I touched on last week. I'll review them again. And then something else I didn't really get to last week that I'm going to talk about now, or in a moment. So the first two things, when we add bullets, remember, it keeps us in that bullet mode. So if I add a paragraph between 2 existing paragraphs or 2 existing list items, it's going to give me another bullet. Let me undo. If I add something after the last list item, it will still give me another bullet because it kind of just assumes that I want to keep going with bullets. But if you ever want to exit this bullet style and go back to normal paragraphs, simply create your new paragraph by pressing enter, and then in your ribbon, in the paragraph group, just click on the bullet icon again to turn it off. And you'll be back to the left margin, back to normal paragraphs. Just want to remind you of how to do that in case you ever run into that issue. All right, again, create your next item by pressing enter and then just turn off the bullets, right? So that's how you kind of go back and forth between a bullet style and normal paragraph style. The next thing I'd like to mention is that when you add bullets, it will indent each paragraph further to the right than what it was before. And you can control that indent by going up to the paragraph group and using the decrease indent and increase indent tools here. You'll see the left arrow for decrease and the right arrow for increase. So for example, if I wanted to move these back to the left one alignment tab, I could select all of the list items or paragraphs, click on decrease indent, and they'll go back to the left. Again, you don't have to do that, just showing you that you can if you ever need to. You can decrease and increase indentation very easily. Yep, so click on the left arrow, left, other one. Click it. There you go, it moves back to the left a little more. All right, you might not see it, see? Okay, that's just decreasing and increasing your indent or indentation. Now, the third thing I want to mention, this is what we didn't get to last week. Remember earlier we had a slightly larger space between the paragraphs than we did between the lines. Notice now we don't have that larger space between paragraphs. So when you add bullets, Word is going to treat your paragraphs differently in terms of spacing. But We can add the spacing back if we want to. I'm going to show you how to do that right now, so let's all do it together. Step number 1, select all of the list items or paragraphs, whatever you want to call them. Oops, what did I do here? Oh, I missed that one. Hang on. Let me fix that. I missed a paragraph before. There we go. Okay. So again, select all of your paragraphs or list items. I did it again. Moving. Okay, there we go. Good. And remember, when you select a bulleted list, the bullets themselves won't be part of the selection. That's okay. That's normal. Okay. So we selected our list items. Now let's go up to our paragraph group. Click on that icon for line and paragraph spacing we were using earlier. Line and paragraph spacing. Just click on it, get the drop down, and then stop right there for a second. Line and paragraph spacing, go ahead and click on it. Good. Now this time I want you to go down to where it says line spacing options. That's where we go to make custom spacing. Click on it, and that's going to open up a separate dialog box like this. Line spacing options. The third from the bottom of that list. Line spacing options. Good. Now down below, remember where I talked about where the paragraph spacing is located, where it says before and after. We see that? 0, 6. Well, it says 6 points, but why am I not getting any spaces? That's because of this checkbox underneath that says don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Notice it's checked off. This is an override, okay? It's going to override whatever's here and just give you 0 no matter what. Word did that automatically. So to get your spacing back between paragraphs, click on the box to uncheck it. So get rid of the check mark by clicking on the box, and then just go down and click OK at the bottom. And then we get our spaces back between each paragraph. All right, now after all this hard work, let's go ahead and just quickly update our document. And by that, I just mean save it. If you still have that dialog box open, just click OK at the bottom. Just click OK at the bottom. If you have the dialog box still open from line and paragraph spacing, just click OK at the bottom of it to Good. Now let's go up and just do a quick save. Remember, you could either go to File and then click Save, or up in your Quick Access toolbar in the very top left corner, click on that Save Disk icon to just do a quick save. Okay. Now we're up to our third phase, which is to review it for errors. Some are obvious and some are not so obvious. So let's talk about the obvious ones first. We went through this last week. Let's go through it again. As we go through the document, as you type your document, Word will keep track of spelling and grammar errors in real time. Spelling errors will be indicated or flagged by a red squiggly underline. And as I can see that right now, I have 4 errors in this document: recessed, attract, outsourcing, and down here, this guy's last name of Cobblepot. So first things first, I'd like us all to click before the title or heading. Put your insertion point at the very beginning of the document because I want to make sure we're all starting in the same place. You don't have to select, just click and put your insertion point at the beginning. In fact, if you select anything, it's going to throw off your spell check because it's only going to look in that selected portion. Good. Now, to run our spelling and grammar check, we go to which tab? Do we remember? The Review tab. Not View, but Review. So click on your Review tab. Good. Now on the very left side of the ribbon, or of that tab, I should say, in your proofing group is the spelling and grammar command. Go ahead and click on it to open it up. On the very left, spelling and grammar, the very first command shown. Good. So let's just review how this works. On the right side of the screen, we have our proofing pane. Follow my mouse cursor. All right. In the box displayed, it's going to show you the incorrect spelling. All right, the way it's currently spelled. In the next section, you'll see suggestions. These are spelling or suggested spellings, what it thinks you're trying to spell. Sometimes you'll get one suggestion, sometimes you'll get a few. All right, and like I said last time, sometimes you won't get any if you misspelled a word particularly badly. Okay, but usually that's not the case. So it's very simple. You click on the spelling you do need, and if you're not sure, you can always look at the dictionary definition provided to make the right call. And once you click on it, it will immediately change it to the correct spelling and then move on to the next error in your document, if any. So what I want us all to do right now is click on the very first suggestion, because that's the one we need. Click on it, recess, and then it'll move on to the next error, which is a tract. Now remember, in the drop down next to that suggestion, if you made the same error several times, you could always click on change all, and it will change every identical error to the same word without you having to do each one individually. Just reminding you that that's there, okay? But for now, just go ahead and click on the correct spelling for a tract, which is right here, and it moves on to the next one, which is outsourcing. All right, once again, the one we need is at the top of the list, so click on it, outsourcing. All right, and stop here for a second. Good, now stop here. We talked about this last week, let's review. The last one it's finding is Cobblepot. Now, if you look at the page, that's this person's last name. So technically this is not an error, because remember, Microsoft Word is just using basically the standard dictionary. So things like last names and sometimes even first names, it's not going to recognize because they're unique. And it's going to think they're an error. So we don't want to change it. We want to ignore it, which will get rid of the red underline, and then move on to another error, if any. But let's review. At the bottom here, under suggestions, we have three options: ignore once, ignore all, and add to dictionary. All right, ignore once, we'll just ignore this and move on to the next error. Ignore all would ignore all instances of Cobblepot with one click instead of going through each one individually. And then add to dictionary is probably your best option. It will add this person's last name to its own dictionary so that in the future you no longer have to worry about the program flagging it. All right. So for you guys here in the lab, if you want to click on add to dictionary just to do it, go ahead. All right, I'm not going to do that only because that will be saved to my computer. I don't want that to be the case, so I'm just going to click ignore once. And then that should be the end of our error, so click OK. Spelling and grammar check is complete. Let's scroll back up to the top of the document. All right, now there is still one more error, or technically a few errors, And this one's not so obvious. Word didn't pick up on it. So first lesson is just a reminder to always proofread your work, okay? Because Word is not going to pick up on every error. So it's always, you should always still read it as a human being and just make sure there are no other errors. So what other error could there possibly be? So it's still in the realm of names. So remember that guy we were talking about earlier, John Doe, all right? His name shows up, his first name, John, shows up 3 times in this document. Twice in paragraph 4 and once in paragraph 5. Okay, 3 times his first name shows up. So that's a very common way to spell the name John, so Word just assumes it's correct. But this John spells his name J-O-N, not J-O-H-N. So we need to fix it because that's not how he spells his name. Now, spelling a grammar check's not going to do it because it's not going to pick it up because it's not, in Word's mind, an error. So we need to do something different. So first of all, if anything on your page is selected, make sure you click anywhere outside of it to get rid of this selection. Just making sure. Again, if anything is selected, click outside of it to get rid of this selection. Okay. Yeah, just click anywhere. You just don't want anything. There you go. Otherwise, it's only going to look in the highlighted portion. We don't want that. Okay. So just click. You don't want anything highlighted. There you go. All right, so remember the commands I talked about earlier to look through your whole document for something specific. So let's go to our Home tab. Go up to your ribbon, go to the Home tab. Remember when we went to select all up here to the very right of the Home tab, the editing group, okay, where we saw select? This time I want you to click on a command called replace. Replace. You got it, replace. Just click on replace, good. And it opens up a separate dialog box called find and replace. And this is why I told you to make sure nothing was highlighted, because it would only look in the highlighted portion of text rather than the whole document. That's not what we want. So we get 2 things we have to fill in: find what and replace with. Okay, so we want to find every instance of the name John, J-O-H-N. So type in J-O-H-N. Doesn't have to be an uppercase J in this case, just J-O-H-N. And then in the next box where it says replace with, click into it. So click into the box that says replace with. And this time we do want an uppercase J because it will be case sensitive. So put in uppercase J and then lowercase O-N. So just J-O-N, not J-O-H-N. So we're looking for J-O-H-N and replacing it with J-O-N. Now, we know that there is more than one instance of this. So down below, instead of clicking on replace, which will make us do each one individually, just click on replace all. So click on replace all. And you should get a message saying all done. We made 3 replacements. Now click OK. Now this stays open in case you want to look for anything else, but we don't. So just click close in the bottom right, or click on the X to close it. And if you look, we did in fact update his name to J-O-N. So it looked for every instance of the name J-O-H-N and replaced it with J-O-N. Okay. So I just want to quickly talk about that for a second. So this replace tool, it's a really great tool to remember, okay? Because not just for spellings, for example, you ever find an old document where somebody used to use 2 spaces after a period? Back in the old days, well, not really that long ago, but once upon a time, we used to do 2 spaces after a period. Now it's 1. So you can always find period, space, space, and replace with period, space. Oops, just period, space. So that's another kind of use for this. Another use is just to make kind of large scale changes. So for example, let's say that next year for the 2022 annual report I have to put together, I want to use the same exact format as this. So that means that all I would then have to do is change the body of the document. All right, but a kind of quick thing I can do just to speed things up is to find 2021 and replace with 2022. And you can see that's exactly what it did. You don't have to do that on your end. I'm just showing it to you on my end. All right, so let me just undo now. So just showing you the benefits to using that find and replace feature. All right, now let's save our work. So go to the top left corner, click on that save icon in your quick access toolbar. All right, now last but not least, we are just about done here. The last thing I'd like to do is basically stamp this with some more information. So let's talk about headers and footers. This is something new. When typically when we want to put identifying information into a document, we use the header and footer positions for this. So what do I mean by identifying information? Things like the author of the document, when the document was created, maybe the department you work in or something like that, and also page numbers. All right, things that don't have to do with the content of the document, but more so to do with sort of the environment of the document. Again, who made it, when, and oftentimes how it's structured. And by that I mean pages. So typically we don't use our margins, but you can use them. So we can put information into the top margin of the page and we call that a header. We can also put information into the bottom margin of the page and we call that a footer. So to do this, we need to manually insert a header and footer. All right, so we need to insert a header and footer. So I'll give you one guess as to which tab in the ribbon we have to go to. Good. So go to your ribbon and click on the Insert tab. All right. Now over to the right is the header and footer group. And you're going to click on the option for header. All right. So I want you to click on the second option. These are built in, by the way. You can create your own custom header by going down to Edit Header, but let's keep it simple. Click on the second option that says blank 3 columns, which will give you a left, center, and right section for your header. Now these little things that say type here in the brackets, those are called placeholders. Don't worry about that term too much, but you're going to see that in templates and also in PowerPoint if you ever want to use PowerPoint. Again, these are called placeholders, and it's very simple. You just erase the placeholder and type in what you want. So go to the first one on the left, just click on it and the whole thing will highlight, and you could just type right over it with your first and last name. Just type right over it. Once you highlight it, just type right over it. Your first and last name, not mine. All right, let's go to the center placeholder. Again, click on it to highlight it. And we're just going to type in our bakery name, Smart Cookie Bakery. Smart Cookie Bakery. All right, and now go to the right placeholder and click on it. Now this time, we're not going to type in anything. We want to put in the date, but we don't need to type it in. Now, first, let's talk about the ribbon for 1 second. Remember we used the Insert tab to get to the header and footer, right? Okay, when we use Microsoft Office, and by the way, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Publisher all come with an Insert tab. When we use commands from the Insert tab, they typically come with a special menu. So if you look in your ribbon right now, you will see a special tab that was not there earlier. It says Design, and above it, it says Header and Footer Tools. Do we see that? Okay. We're going to talk about this more if you take our pictures, tables, and text boxes class. All right, but this is called a contextual tab. They call it contextual because if I leave, in this case, the header and footer, the menu goes away. If I go back into the header and footer, the menu comes back. That's why they call it contextual. It's only there if you need it. So with that said, all right, we're still talking about this right placeholder. In that special menu, you will see in the insert group over here a command called date and time. Go ahead and click it, and it's going to launch a dialog box. And you could choose the format you like. I'm just going to go with the third one down. Click on it, and then in the bottom right corner, click OK. Now we're going to do one more thing. Let's go back up to that special design tab. And we want to go ahead and put in a footer, or more specifically, we want to put page numbers into the footer. So let's go up to the special menu, and over to the left, you'll see a header and footer group again, like we saw before in the Insert tab. Now you don't have to click on footer. All right, a slightly faster approach, click on page number. And we could do both things at once. Click on page number. And from the list provided, point at bottom of page, which is the same thing as your footer. So point at bottom of page, and then you'll get a whole bunch of different options as to how you want your page numbers to look. There are a lot of them. Let's just click on the second one that says plain number 2, which will put your page number in the bottom center of the page like so. Good. Okay. Now keep in mind with headers and footers, they are running or continuous. That means if I create a page 2, the same header will automatically apply to that page, and I'll get a page 2. If I get a page 3, same thing, etc., etc. Okay? So your header and footer automatically just update or paste onto each new page. So now that we're done with the header and footer, let's go back up to that special design tab, follow my mouse, and to the very right, you'll see the big X that says close header and footer. Click on it to exit the header and footer. Good. Now we're going to do one more thing, and then we are going to get set up to print. I just want you to know how to insert a link, because this is something that's, of course, now that everything's kind of connected with the internet nowadays, this is more and more common, so it's a good thing to know how to do in a Word document. So the first thing I'd like you to do is I want you to click at the end after the last paragraph. So your blinking insertion point is at the very end after the period here. And then I want you to start a new paragraph. So press enter. Press enter. Now get rid of the bullet. Remember how we do that. Go up to your paragraph group in the Home tab and click on the bullet icon to go back to normal paragraphs. Click on the bullet icon to turn it off. The icon itself, not the drop down, the actual icon. Nope. Icon. See the 3 dots? Click on the icon. Turn it off. Nope. Do it again. Turn it back on. Turn it off. Good. See it's gone? It's like an on and off switch. Okay. All right. So now we're going to go ahead and insert a link. So to insert a link, I just said the word insert again. So which tab should we go to? the Insert tab. So go up to your ribbon and click on the Insert tab. Okay, and then about halfway through, a little more than halfway through to the right, you'll see a links group. Click on the option that says link. And if your icons might look a little bit different from mine, yours might be going left to right instead of up and down. Don't worry about that. Okay, just click on the icon that says link. It's the same thing. Just click on link. Good. Now, at the top, you're going to see there are two boxes here I want you to look at. At the top, it says text to display, and down at the bottom, it says address. By address, it means the website that we want to link to, okay? So I want you to make sure you're in the address box down below. You should already be in there. I think the blinking line's already there. And in that box, I want you to type in the following: www.smartcookiebakery.com. Remember, when you type in a website address, there are no spaces, all one continuous line of text, no spaces. So www.smartcookiebakery.com, and just stay there for a second. Don't click OK yet. All right. Now, I just want to talk about one thing real quick. In the top box, this is text to display. Oftentimes, when we put links into a document, we hide the link behind regular text. So you wouldn't see in the document itself www. etc. You would see probably just something that says Smart Cookie Bakery, but it looks like a link. And we know it's a link typically if it's blue and underlined. However, to keep things simple, I just want you to go to the right, the bottom right, and click OK. And you'll see the link in the document now. So just click OK. Good. So down below, there's the link. Again, it's blue and underlined. This is why nowadays you generally don't want to use underlining too much in a document, because the underlining is typically reserved for links, so we know it's a link. Okay. So like I said, by changing that text to display box, we could make this say whatever we want, and that's just the link going on behind the scenes. But to keep it simple, we're just doing both. The link is the text to display as well. All right. And that's how you insert a link into a Word document. Very simple. All right, so now I want you to do one last quick save. Go up to your quick access toolbar on the top left, click on the save disk icon. And then let's go to the file menu. And about halfway down, I want you to click on print, but don't just click on print here. Don't click on print here yet. I just want to review it first. All right, so go ahead and click on the big print button to print your work, and I'll come around and grab that in 1 second. For my virtual students, give me 1 second while I turn off the microphone, and I'll return shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that wraps up our Word Essentials class. So remember that if you took this class, obviously, or if, should I say, if you are happy with your performance in this class, you are welcome to sign up for our Word assessment during one of the assessment windows this month, and you could test for your Word certificate through North Star Digital Literacy. So if you're interested, you can always send us a chat right now through GoToMeeting. All right, just click on the chat icon and GoToMeeting, and then send us a chat letting us know you're interested. Otherwise, you could always sign up later. Just send us an email to the email address I'm going to put up on the screen right now. So bear with me 1 second.